All right, well, I think we are getting into game number 1 here. Here we go. We're going to go to post-youth for our first map. And in the top right, a former world champion, one of the best Zergs in the history of the game. It is Dark.
And throughout this very long history of StarCraft II, 14 years, we've had a whole bunch of great North American Protoses, but this is absolutely one of the very best to ever do it. Representing Virtuous Pro, it is Astrea.
All right. So, just talking about them a little bit, already something crazy happening here from Astrea, a very, very, very fast proxy pylon. This is, oh gosh, and it's going to get scouted immediately. But it's 2 gates. It's 2 gateways. He sees them, though. This is the big problem. I'm a little bit nervous for him already. I think Dark is going to be able to come out here and hold this pretty easily.
Yep, he's going to actually build the spawning pool at the top of this ramp, which means that Astrea could eventually have to deal with a full wall, but I wonder if that's the right approach, because that obviously does mean that your spawning pool is going to be a relatively easy target. I'm incredibly curious how Astrea is going to follow this up, because we do see that he's building a gas, so I expect a couple of Zealots into a quick cybernetics core.
Yeah.
And is he then looking for adepts to just shade around the main base, or does he actually want to go all out and maybe make a couple of Stalkers? Stalkers have like more micro potential in the straight up fight, but adepts have more chaos potential.
Yeah, I'm not so sure, but I did see him shake his head as he went up the ramp and saw the placement of that spawning pool, so I think that is part of his plan there. We'll see if Dark is able to just parry this very easily. The thing is, Astrea has strategies no one's ever seen. Like, I would easily put him as top 3 strategically at this whole event, and in the whole world, in fact.
The man is very fun and he's incredibly creative as he is going to work on this spawning pool. There is a spine crawler coming online though in that mineral line, and the 2 Zealots can't really do much about it. That probe is actually very important because it normally takes a Zealot 3 hits to kill a Zergling, but if the probe gets a single hit off on one of these probes, Zealot will be able to 2-shot Zergling.
Yeah.
So that probe could have been very useful. Unfortunately for Astrea, he's lost it rather quickly. It's got 4 Zealots now. 2 Zealots still pushing out a lot of damage on this spawning pool, and it does seem like this spawning pool could potentially fall. With 2 more very healthy Zealots showing up, and we've got these 2 Adepts popping in the near future. I believe he can get the pull. The problem is the Queens are already out, the Zerglings are out, and there is a spine crawler.
Well, you know, he's got the Adept now. I think he might still be able to push and get the pull, do you think? There's no transfusion energy as of yet. Yeah, maybe he did that a little bit too quickly. Now he's going to go ahead and shade, and if those Lings go over there, I could see him maybe not only picking off these drones, but the Zealots should probably hit the pool again right now.
Yep, I don't think the Queens really have transfuse energy yet. Dark canceling that spine is honestly kind of crazy
to me. Dude, it's so low. It's so low. He's got to target it if he's going to go for it. Oh, he's going after it again here, and he's so
oh my goodness, no!
Close. No! And the transfusion comes down. That is a heartbreaker. That was some miss micro there from Astrea.
It's almost like he was afraid to kill it too quickly, because then he would have to worry about all those broodlings that puts around his units, but now he doesn't get it in the end at all. Does not have enough DPS anymore to stick around. There are Zerglings in the main base on the other side of the map. I believe Dark for a split second there rebuilt the spawning pool, or he got a spine crawler up again, and then he just cancelled it. And Dark says, I really don't need it. I am fine, as enough time went by for the Queens to have 50 energy to drop a transfuse. And this is just a bit of a disaster start for Astrea. I mean, it's fun to see different stuff, Artosis. But obviously, if you play these risky builds, you know they can fall flat on their face.
They can. Some bad luck there, some bad execution there, unfortunately, for Astrea. But we'll see if he's able to maybe try to fight back. It doesn't look likely since Dark is going for a Baneling Nest, and there's already Lings up here. So, like, this is like worst case scenario, I would say, for Astrea. I'd be very surprised if he's not dead in the next minute.
Oh, I think he will be, and I think he knows it as well, but he's just wondering. Maybe Dark does something silly, like he just stays incredibly passive for 6 minutes, but Dark is a no-nonsense Zerg. If he can get you out of the game, he's going to get you out of the game. We look at the army splites. What a depth right now for Astrea. 2 gateways are about to finally be able to warp in a couple of units. I guess, theoretically, we could warp in a couple sentries. He does have 500 gas, and with non-stop sentries, we've got a chance when he goes for depth, and I don't believe that is ever going to get the job done.
No, this is looking pretty rough. That last pylon going to be able to be taken out here as well. The Baneling walking in, and he's about to have 2 more. So, I mean, from bad to worse right now. Lings flooding in. GG is called, and Dark will end up taking game 1. But I will tell you what, if he hadn't seen those gateways with the Overlord, I bet you Astrea would have sniped him there, you know? It really felt like a build that even though it got scouted, Astrea got very close to making magic happen.
Yep, because if he doesn't see that gateway, he doesn't fire up 6 Zerglings immediately. If you don't have those Zerglings, if you don't have that Queen immediately right where it's supposed to be, then it would have all looked very different. Even towards the very end there, by the way. That is so omega frustrating for Astrea. Because of course he will look at this and be like, man, this was a bit of a disaster. I didn't get the pool, my gateways are going to be unpowered. But if he warps in 2 sentries there, and he drops a force field, and he drops another force field, he has enough time to get another set of warp-ins going, and he actually had a 5-worker lead. Now, I'm not saying that the game looks good for him, because he's just stuck on 2 gateways. He's got no Stargate, he's got no Twilight Council, so he's still in trouble, but that is actually a position that you can still play from. Then maybe you can drop a Robo, do something fancy with a Warp Prism and Adapts, but to warp into Adapts and 0.1 second later Banelings show up is like, oh, come on. Could anything else have gone wrong in this game?
And look at that, 78 health. He was missed-targeting here a little bit. Look at this, 38, 22, 15. That's 1 Zealot hit away. It went down to 7 health, and then the transfusion came out. It's really unfortunate. If he had focused on that a little bit more, it would have died.
Look at this. He has a 5-worker lead, and he warps in the depths 0.1 second before the Banelings show up. Now, I still think that even if that Baneling boss doesn't kill Astrea, this man would have still been in a mighty fine position. 4-0 right now in this tournament. Yesterday, a very convincing 3-0 over Hero Marine, and he has now taken the 1-0 lead after successfully defending some Protoss cheese hailing from Korea. It is Dark.
And his opponent showing us some very original play in that last game, but falling a little bit flat in the execution. It is America's #1, Astrea.
It made sense what he did, where you start battling the queens. If you feel like this is a battle that you can theoretically win, you don't want to go for the spawning pool immediately, because then the pool dies, but 8 broodlings show up, they surround your units, and then you get the pool, but you lose all your DPS. So he's like, you know what, I'm going to put some pressure on the queens first, maybe I can get one of the queens, and after that I'll shift my priorities to the spawning pool. Well, yeah, it obviously really backfired. Did not get the queen, did not get the pool, and it was a bit of a disaster, but it was already disaster when that first Overlord flew over the gate so quick. If he builds it 2 pixels towards the right, that Overlord does not see the gate, and we're probably still talking about this very cool opening of Astrea.
I honestly think he would have won, because he wasn't that far off in that game anyways. So we'll see what he has planned for these other maps, but you know, as we were talking about before, Astrea probably plays most different from everyone in the tournament. Like, he's really got his own style, you know, as far as, like, I'm always shocked when he doesn't have 100 on strategy. I feel like no one's paying enough attention to give him the right grade, because there isn't a player that comes up with more original strategies and uses more original strategies than Astrea in the pro scene.
I do hear you give out a lot of 100s, Arctosis. If I was a
100 on strategy, well, if you're the best player in the world on
Maru
something,
gets 100s across the board.
Yes, he gets 100. No, on speed we'll give him a 99. But
I wish I had you as my teacher in high school, man. I would have done so much better.
Oh, man. I don't grade on a curve, Roddy. But I think if you are literally #1 in the world at something, you should have 100 points on it.
I agree. And I would absolutely give Astrea a few more points. In general, I agree with the pro gamers, but it is funny because they are the ones that are rating their colleagues. And, of course, we get a vote as well. And the community gets a vote in there. But across the board, most people do feel that these numbers don't really do Astrea justice. He deserves a little more, especially for his very creative approach to this game. We've got a much more normal setup here on Golden Aura. And when we talk a lot about how Astrea plays different, I do think we have to mention that Dark plays very different as well.
Yeah.
You look at Sarah, you look at Raynor, and they always have these mega high drone counts, and they creep the entire map, and they have got mega quick hives, and they rely on the lurkers with the upgrades, and Viper control is perfect. And Dark is running around with 68 drones, roaches, and hydras, and you're like, Dark, you're all in. He's like, I know. It's like, but you didn't kill him. He's like, I know, but I'm going to do good enough in every single fight is that this game can go on for another 7 minutes, and I'm okay with 68 drones, roaches, and hydras. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to a lot of pro gamers.
Yeah.
But Dark is just so damn good in taking certain fights.
Yeah, the way that I've always looked at Dark is like he's the best low drone macro player in the world by miles. Like this guy can be on 44 drones at 18 minutes, and I'm like, no, it's a macro game. Don't worry. Like, yeah, he'll be on Hive, and you know by then he'll be on 60 drones, and like it's gonna be fine. But yeah, definitely stylistically very, very different from a lot of the other top Zergs,
yeah,
but not really weaker.
Absolutely not, and he can macro. Like, if you give him time, and if Dark one moment wakes up and says, you know what, I do want to go up to 90 workers and get an off clip going and get an incredibly quick Hive, he can do that, and he's going to look damn good with that playstyle as well. But he just loves living on the edge, and he just takes phenomenal fights. Let's see if Astrea can find some success with the Oracle. Spore Crawler is done in the natural. This is very risky by Astrea. He's going to take a lot of damage on that Oracle. And there is no wiggle room in the main base. We've got a Spore Crawler there too. There is a tiny opening though in the third base. Grabs 2 workers. Would have loved to get another one. But Dark even dropped the Transfuse. Now I don't think the Oracle would have committed to it.
Yeah.
Overall solid defense here though by Dark. Only losing 2 workers while dealing this much real damage to the Oracle. Not just shield damage. And Dark is going to be happy with this.
Definitely a little bit painful there for Astrea. You know, 2 is like the minimum amount you can get with the Oracles. Like everyone in the world gets 2 drones when they fly in, but
yeah, but I also lose my Oracles like this.
Yeah, no, me too. I still get those 2 drones. But yeah, he's taken a lot of damage on those. You know, I'm sure eventually he'll slip it out. I mean, he could use a recall. I don't think we'll see that, but he's taking his third base. He's getting up into Blink, so some pretty standard stuff. You know, we talked a lot about the different strategies of Astrea, but he can play these more straight-up styles as well.
And it is worth mentioning that Wall and Aura is an excellent defensive map. You basically have this 4-base core setup on your side of the map. If your opponent wants to attack you, he always has to go up a ramp one way or the other, and that makes it incredibly difficult. As this stasis trap, by the way, is actually pretty solid. A couple of drones get stuck. The 2 queens will be stuck for a little while, as Dark is going to fire up his first 8 roaches. We don't look at a whole lot of Zerglings. There is no +1 melee yet, so Dark absolutely does need to respect the power of the Blink Stalker, especially on the edge of creep with Oracle support.
Yeah, I love seeing him actually walk around here and kill off some of those creep tumors. I think that this is we've seen Protoss doing this more and more lately, right? Where they're trying to shave down some of these tumors. Terran players have been on top of that for a long time, but very good here from Astrea, just picking off a few extras.
I saw a quick infestation pit and I was like, is Dark gonna give us a quick Hive game? But that is not what he's going to do at all. He drops the Nidus network as well, which means we're probably going to see a lot of Roaches, Ravagers, Queens, and of course the Swarmals. And I don't think that Astrea is going to scout this anytime soon. And this goes back to these Oracles taking so much damage of the Spore Crawler and the Queen in the early game. At that point, you're a lot more hesitant as a Protoss to send those Oracles in deep to figure out what's happening in the main, what's happening in the natural.
Yeah.
And if you don't know you're playing against Swarmals, it can be incredibly difficult to go up against.
It's a good point, but I actually don't like this choice. Like, I'm actually a huge fan of Swarm Host Nidus, but I actually don't think that's good in this particular game, okay? Because like the Swarm Host Nidus does best against someone who's making Immortals and Archons. Like, it's unbelievably strong. Ah, there's the double robo. I was going to say, he doesn't have a robo. He might be going very gateway-centric. But one thing I will say about Astrea is I think he has really good understanding of the fundamentals of why you should do certain things. So when the Locusts start flying, I think we're going to see him get pretty aggressive on Dark.
We see a cannon coming online, and I'm incredibly curious where that cannon is being built. Maybe Astrea right now is like, wait a minute, why am I so successful here with my Stalkers on your side of the map? All I've seen is a couple of Roaches. It's got to be a bit more difficult than this. So I think Astrea is expecting something along the lines of Swarm Host Nidus. Could potentially be worried about Mutalisk as well, but Mutalisk don't make a lot of sense after so many Roaches while going up against Blink Stalkers that are already pretty good. So I think that Astrea at this point knows. I think what you really want to do here is see where these Nidus. Yeah, he's looking for it. He absolutely knows.
So good.
He's heard it, of course, as well as he gets an alert whenever the first Nidus comes up, and just forcing a couple of these Locusts to land on the low ground. Don't get on top of your probes or your Nexus is already a big win. Even if you end up losing a couple of workers, this is okay. But now Astrea does need to start buying time. And I would honestly say go crazy on these static defenses. Batteries and cannons are fantastic against Locusts.
And look at this, he is fighting against the Locusts. So the Swarmos are gaining some value here. In the meantime, a little counterattack by Dark. He has a huge amount of supply right now. Overcharge goes off, but he is being powered down on these Stalkers. and it looks like a little bit of a flank as well. You know, the supply definitely looks super dark favored, and yeah, it is, but I don't think Astrea is actually in that bad of a position. You know, the supply doesn't tell the full story when it's like Roach, you know, like a Roach-based army coming up here.
You're spot on there, but it is important then that Astrea stops losing units, and he's already been bleeding out a couple of Stalkers, and Stalkers are not cheap. Roaches are cheap. Stalkers are not cheap. We are losing a couple of the gateways. I do think it's going to be more and more difficult for Astrea to maintain a pretty healthy army supply, as the Roaches and Ravagers are here. Locusts are going to keep the Protoss army at bay. Battery Overcharge is on cooldown, so Dark wants to go for the Nexus, but Astrea with a forward blink is going to trap a lot of these units, and that is absolutely a great fight for Astrea. Even if he loses a couple of units, he kills a lot of real units as he now blinks forward again, gets on top of the Nidus network as well. This is such a crazy battle.
Dude, those 3 Immortals have done so much work here, but with these Lings coming in, he does have to pull back. Locust swarming in on top of him as well. And it feels like Dark is just about to break through here. If he loses those Robos, I can't see him winning this game.
What a brilliant call by Dark to show up there with 20 Zerglings, because the Zerglings getting on top of the Immortals is what allows him to finally kill those units. If he just had 10 more Roaches show up there, you don't get much done. The only thing you can do is fight with support of the Locusts, but the Zerglings, they show up quicker and they are able to surround those Immortals. Astrea had a pretty good idea, I think, of what he was going up against. Took a good fight on his ramp, but maybe he got a tiny bit carried away going all the way down that ramp. Like, it is a strong defensive map. Why don't you rely on your static defenses?
It's a good point. I think that, you know, you want to push and punish the player that's going for the Locust because they aren't always ready. So I think he was thinking to himself, okay, it's off cooldown. Let's get down here. Let's kill the Niduses, force the Locusts out of here, or the Stormhosts out of here, rather. I think that that's the idea he was going for, and it just didn't quite work out.
Dark is having one hell of a run so far. 5-0 the Esports World Cup 2024 as we take another look at this blink. I love this blink, and this is absolutely a good fight. Even if you're going to lose a couple of those expensive Protoss units, you take out so many Roaches and Ravagers. And I think the forward blink to the low ground would have been okay if Dark wasn't Dark and wouldn't show up with Zerglings at a picture-perfect moment.
They ruined that. They really ruined the whole engagement. You can't really do anything with those Immortals against that. But against the Roaches, you could see the amount of value he was gaining, and you know he's making 2 Immortals at a time. But you know this is where Dark makes his money, man. He makes those Zerglings, sends them down, and what can you do?
At this point, the man has played 5 games, has won all 5, and I would only say in Game 2 against Hero Marine on Dynasty, he was perhaps in a tiny bit of trouble where Gabe did have a powerful army, but in the other 4 matches, it really has been all Dark from the beginning till the end.
Speaking of which, up here in the top right, leading 2-0, it is Dark.
In the bottom left side of El Sayani, we take a look at the main base of the man who's trailing 0-2, but he had a great win yesterday over Gumio. Can we turn things around for the American Protoss representing Virtus Pro? It is Astrea.
You know, he's 0-2 right now, but Game 1 could have gone his way, and Game 2, like, he lost and it looked convincing, but he was close. Like, he was starting to block everything. He was making very good moves in general, and Dark just kind of outplayed him. But, you know, I feel like he was relatively close to blocking everything and kind of resetting the position of the game.
Yeah, it seems silly when people hear us say that, but he was down like 70 supply. Yes, that's often going to happen when it's Roaches and Swarmos. And I think the initial catch on the first Nidus and forcing a couple of the Locusts to land on low ground was excellent. The fight he took on the right side of the 4th base wasn't very good because he was bleeding out a lot of Stalkers. Those Stalkers are important. And Astrea just needed a little bit of time because an investment from going pure, like, okay, we open up with the Oracles, that's standard. We make a couple Stalkers, we get a Forge, but then we go double Robo and the Templar Archives. Your Protoss army is going to get a massive power spike if you can just survive for 90 seconds or 2 minutes. You got 2 Archons out near batteries. Maybe we get a War Prism in the mix, right? So we can pick up units if they ever get in trouble against the Locusts. And then supplies can absolutely swing. You can be down 60, but after one good fight with battery overcharge and a bit of micro, it can suddenly be even. And if it's even, well, then you're in all sorts of trouble as the Zerg, because with that army comp, you're never supposed to be even in supply. So it may not have looked close, but I do absolutely catch your drift where it could have been close.
Yeah.
If Australia would have just done one or two things slightly better.
It's a tricky thing to explain, but supply, you kind of have to understand what units are supply efficient, what are not, and all that good stuff. So anyways, that was a one-of-a-kind game there. We have some Lings on the way, as well as the speed upgrade. And over on Astrea's side, he is going for the Stargate once again.
That's very early, by the way, those Zerglings that Dark made. There was a probe still on patrol in front of the natural of Dark, so maybe Astrea has done his homework. Maybe this is something that he knows Dark likes to do. Because obviously, as a Protoss player, you like to build your first adept, shade it to the other side of the map immediately, because there is nothing to worry about, right? They are just defending. Well, if right when you're on the other side of the map with one adept, 6 Zerglings show up in your natural and get on top of your pylon, it's incredibly annoying, can be forcing you to use Recall immediately when you really don't want to use it. But because of that probe, I think Astrea has nothing to worry about. So perhaps homework, job well done.
Yeah, well, that's one thing about Astrea is he thinks about the game a lot. You know, he spent actually quite a long time in Korea over the years, so I got to hang out with him quite a bit. And he's like, I really appreciate the way he thinks about the game. He keeps a notebook, he keeps notes, he really thinks about the way different players play and what types of styles are doing what and everything. So I think that does help him out a lot in events like this.
Yep, and this is one of these games where it may look like nothing has happened now, but that was actually a pretty significant victory for Astrea, because now Dark's like, man, I made those Zerglings way too early. I didn't get any value out of them whatsoever. And they will help him out defensively. They will make sure that he has nothing to worry about when it comes to these first adepts. But Astrea should be able to have a slightly larger economic lead than you normally have in a game where nothing has happened so far.
Yeah, that's like a funny thing. Like, you might be able to make as many drones at home as the pro gamers, but it matters what order you're making them in. You know, that's one of the huge things about Zerg that's like kind of hidden unless you play a lot of StarCraft.
I don't love the positioning of that Twilight Council, because it's basically blocking a few of the probes on the right mineral patch, and now they're going the long way around. Like, these are tiny.
Are they? Oh, I think he just needs to click them inside.
Yeah, there is a way to do that, but if we're not doing that, we're still losing some mining time, right? And now we're dealing some indirect damage to ourselves.
Dude, now he's got 3 patch on the outside. Okay, he's fixing it now. He's fixing it.
Yeah. I hope it works, though.
Like, it'll stay. They'll stay on the inside now.
Yeah, but the rally point of the probes from the main base are still going to that mineral patch. It's a little bit frustrating. It's not going to make or break the game, but it's a tiny bit frustrating. Let's talk about that follow-up, though. A resonating glaive adept for Astrea.
Yeah, maybe something you wouldn't expect right here. You know, glaives goes in and out of popularity. Oh, the 2 oracles jumping in right now, and well, I guess they only get 1, so not that big a deal. But what do you think about this? Do you think he should go like really heavy? It looks to me like this is just going to be like an adept pressure while he continues to macro.
Yes, could be with an immortal, like a robo coming up at home and then building a few immortals. There are sometimes multiple waves of adepts, where first time we make like 12 adepts, we shade them to the other side of the map, we hope to get a lot of damage done. Then we actually have a second wave of even more adepts, and maybe a War Prism and an immortal or 2. I have the feeling that we're pretty committed, because it is really hard to justify building 14 adepts with Resonating Glaive, because we're obviously using the Twilight Council to research this upgrade, and it also means that Blink or Charge is going to be a lot later. So you can just make 12 adepts and be like, oh, I hope I get like 5 drones, and we'll take the game from there. No, this is a pretty significant investment on the side of Astrea, and he really needs to get a lot of damage done. The Roach Warren of Dark is damn late. It is still not done, and we already have this many adepts shading to the other side of the map. There is a lot of potential here for Astrea.
Yeah, and you know, he didn't really get to scout all of this. Now the Overlord flying over them. 8 roaches get started immediately, but this is a relatively big window for these Glaved Adepts to do some damage.
Yep, there are a lot of drones at the third, so even trying to just keep these Adepts out of your natural main doesn't necessarily help you. It will make it a little bit easier to only defend in one base. I would love Astrea if he leaves like 2 or 3 drones behind here, by the way. The vast majority, he's going to shade everything into the main base. Leaving 1 or 2 behind would have been a sweet play too. This is already a success, but what is very important is not just the amount of drones you kill, it's also how long this link is on. Because the longer this takes, the more time you have at home to start building immortals.
Yeah, very, very true. If you can just buy time, don't forget that they are losing mining time. The drones are traveling between patches. They have worse saturation when you're oversaturated at a base. And he's still shading around. He's still keeping pretty busy. 4 Adepts coming in here towards this third. Going to be able to pick off a fair amount of drones here, even with the Queens attacking them. A lot of the Adepts will make it out as well.
Yep, that's actually very cool. So he hasn't even lost everything. It is very difficult for Dark to bring your units in the right spot because that Roach Warren was so late, which obviously means he's got no Roach speed either. And sure, they get a bit of a movement speed buff on creep, but Roaches without their speed upgrade are still pretty slow. Now, that's a little bit sloppy there by Astrea, losing one of those Oracles. Not needed, as Dark is heading into Roaches and Hydras. Astrea is building his first few Immortals. He's going to transition into Blink Stalkers. I think he should be okay. This is a crazy move, by the way, by Dark, because he's got no Ravagers to break force fields. So if he would have gone up that ramp, he would have been force fielded in.
He would have had a hard time there. I love the amount of sentries that Astrea has actually made at home. That's going to just really excel against the armies going up against. And I love the second Robo in the Bay.
Same. I'm so happy to see it. I saw that War Prism. I was like, oh no, I hope that we don't just continue attacking, because this is the kind of situation where the Zerg kind of needs to attack you, and defending is so much easier than attacking, especially if you're sitting on top of a ramp. And if it's a Templar Archives, I'm also fine with it, right? Storm is incredibly good too against Roaches and Hydras, but I love the simplicity of the second Robo and the Robo Bay. More Immortals, great. Colossus against Hydras, great. Disruptors against everything that Zerg has until Vipers are out are fantastic. And just the accessibility of an extra Observer, an extra War Prism. I really love the second Robo and the Robo Bay. Dark, however, is making the correct call for his side of the map, as he's like, basic Roaches and Hydras are not going to cut it. So let's fire up a Hive and let's build some Lurkers.
Okay, so I definitely agree with you. Like, literally, he could choose to make any of the attacking Robo units, and I'm pretty happy with that decision. Although I did find myself, when he started the Colossus, a little bit sad. I kind of want to see here a Disruptor play, but it could be one of these singular Colossus into Disruptor. I guess we'll see. No, the second one does get started. So now an attack coming in here from Dark, but very good force field, saving the day there for Astrea. That was a very high DPS army coming up for Dark, so good save.
Yep, we've got a couple of adepts in the main base as well, looking for damage, and it's already lost mining time and -4 drones. Astrea is not done yet, as he gets the 5th. Perhaps can get a few more in the natural. I'm with you. I do like a couple of Colossus, because that keeps you safe against a lot of random Zerglings. We still remember our Golden Aura Zerglings, of course, a very different game. But it's always nice to have a Colossus or two, because it gives you a little more confidence to be out and about on the map. And even if the Zerg jumps on you, you're like, well, I've got a great army. But if the Lurk account increases, we can't be too Colossus heavy.
Yeah, and you know, as Vipers are coming out right now, I am a little bit nervous about how high quality that's going to end up being. Now, Astrea is pushing. The Vipers are not out, the Lurkers are not out, so in a way, this is a very good timing, and that Colossus is doing great against all these Lings coming up. A few extra force fields go down. The Hydras actually target down that Colossi. Another one going to go ahead and join up. Some slow Zealots coming in here as well.
And while all this happened, the War Prism got picked off as well in the main base, so excellent defense by Dark. We don't have extended thermal lens. The #1 upgrade that Protoss players really like to forget. Now, if we only want to build those 2 Colossus, and after that we want to build different units, perhaps we don't need it, but it always feels like it is worth it. Sure, it's a little bit pricey, but we're on 4 bases. We've got double Robo. If we like those Colossus, we should absolutely get that upgrade. He's actually dropping the Templar Archives now, which I don't hate, because it's going to give us access not just to Storm or Archons, but feedback is incredibly important against Vipers.
Yeah, I think so. At this point, I wouldn't mind if he stays a little bit more Immortal heavy and just focuses on High Templars as his splash damage, as his anti-Viper. But, you know, as that Lurker count grows, Lurker-Viper is one of the most cost-efficient combos in the entire game. So I am a little bit nervous about Astrea trying to break that, and he may need to go up into Sky Toss to do so.
We used a recall, but we are still not getting on top of this Nidus. I don't think he's seen it yet, so he has recall towards the left side of the map. Now the first Nidus comes online, the Lurkers come out immediately, and this is terrifying. Now there are Zealots on the other side of the map creating a bit of chaos, but what a moment for Dark and his first Nidus to come online as he gets on top of the 2 Forges and the Stargate immediately.
Man, already having utilized that recall makes it extra painful. I love how Dark has just set up at the top of this ramp. It's so hard to actually attack up there and do anything. Goes ahead and reveals everything, but how do you break this?
And the most problematic thing is you can't just give up the main base, because if you give up the main, then your natural's in danger and your triangle base is in danger as well, as the Lurkers can attack those bases from the high ground in the main. What a play by Dark, obviously finding that tiny corner of the main base of Astrea, where Astrea did not have vision, and Astrea recalled his army to the wrong base. I thought he recalled because he saw the Nidus, but he did not see it. and he is going to lose his entire main. But the problem stays. You look at these lurkers, indeed in range of the minerals on the right side. You look at the lurkers near the Nidus, and they are in range of the natural. So Astrea has just been dropped from a 4-base Protoss to a 1-base Protoss.
It's rough, man. The thing is, I really feel like Astrea has played very well and very smartly throughout this series, but Dark just showing that his level is above Astrea's right now. You know, Astrea is very, very close to death at this point. He's down 80 supply, and he's against pretty supply-efficient units, too. So definitely not looking good for him.
Dark is a mystery because he always finds a way. This game really did not start off all that well, and I can guarantee you that a lot of professional Zerg players would have said that Dark should have been dead already against the Adepts because he was not ready for those Adepts. But Dark always finds a way, and the first opportunity that presents itself to him to straight up win the game, he grabs.